Well, good afternoon, fifth grade. Since we can't be together, I thought I would read you the classic story of the Headless Horseman. And as you are well aware, the AR points are due by this Thursday, October 29th. And it is, for those who need the points, it is an accelerated reader quiz. So after we're done, you can take the quiz either on your Chromebook in school or at home. Quiz number 9127. 9127. Okay, sit back, relax, and listen to the spooky story of the Headless Horseman. It's written by Washington Irving, but this one's adapted by Natalie Staniford, illustrated by Donald Cook. Once there was a town called Sleepy Hollow. It was a drowsy little town in a pretty green valley. Life there was always peaceful and quiet. But at night, the town was too quiet. Then you might see something move in the shadows. Then you might hear something moan in the dark. Then you might believe Sleepy Hollow was haunted. The people who lived there thought the whole valley was haunted. They told strange tales about ghosts and goblins and witches. The strangest tale of all was about the Headless Horseman. During the war began the story, a bloody battle was fought in the valley. Swords clashed, cannons boomed. One soldier on horseback lost his head. His headless body was buried in the church graveyard. The tombstone reads, "Rest in peace." But the poor soul buried there cannot rest. Now on nights when the moon is full, he rises from the grave, and don't forget, October 31st, Saturday, we have another full moon, the blue moon. He mounts his Fathom horse and rides through the valley looking for his head. So beware the Headless Horseman. If he cannot find his head, he will gladly take yours. No one believed in ghost stories more than the school teacher, Ichabod Crane. He was an odd-looking fellow, tall and skinny, with dangly arms and floppy feet. When he walked down the street, he looked just like a scarecrow off its post. And there's a picture of him if you can see. Ichabod was poor, but he had a plan. He was going to marry Katrina Van Tassel. Her father was the richest squire in the valley. Ichabod wanted to be just like him. Brom Bones also wanted to marry Katrina. Brom was a friendly young man. He liked to play tricks and ride horses and have fun. All the young ladies liked him, especially Katrina. Ichabod did his best to win Katrina's heart. He read his favorite books to her. He sang his favorite songs to her. He told her all about himself. But you could tell poor Katrina was a little bored with Ichabod Crane. Naturally, Brom Bones was jealous, so he played a trick on Ichabod. Late one night, Brom sneaked into the schoolhouse. He turned the whole place topsy-turvy. When Ichabod arrived in the morning, he was horrified. Oh, witches must have held their meeting here, is what he thought. So he was afraid to teach that day. And there's his classroom all askew. Then one afternoon, an invitation came. The Van Tassels were having a party. Oh, Ichabod jumped for joy. He sent his pupils home and started getting ready. He put on his one and only suit. He combed his hair. He borrowed a broken-down horse and set out for Katrina's house. The sun was still shining as he rode along. It was harvest time in the valley. Everything was golden. Ichabod whistled a happy tune. There's Ichabod on his horse. But when he rode into the woods, the light faded. Ichabod stopped whistling. He went over the bridge and past the church, and then he saw the church graveyard. It gave him the shivers. Ichabod's horse was very slow. It was already dark when Ichabod arrived at the party. Katrina's house was lit up like the moon. Someday, thought Ichabod, all this will be mine. Then some other poor sap will be the school teacher, and I won't even invite him to my parties. That's him arriving at the house. Ichabod went inside. Katrina was dancing with Brom Bones. He tapped Brom on the shoulder. He said, "May I cut in?" Brom stepped aside and let Ichabod dance with Katrina. By and by, Brom tapped Ichabod, but Ichabod would not step aside. Instead, he twirled Katrina away, and Brom got very angry. Okay, there's starts dancing with Katrina and won't let Brom step in. Later that evening, Brom went outside. An old man was telling ghost stories, and there was Ichabod, believing every word. "Ha! I saw the Headless Horseman just last night," said Brom. "He raced me for a cup of punch. I would have won too, but as soon as I crossed the church bridge, the Headless Horseman vanished in a flash of fire." Ichabod's eyes grew wide. Brom smiled. Perhaps the Headless Horseman would ride that very night. The party was over. Ichabod was the last to leave. He was miserable. He had asked Katrina to marry him, and she turned him down. It was midnight as he rode toward home. The woods had never seemed so dark. An owl hooted, a frog croaked, a dog howled, "Oh!" in the dark. Clouds hid the moon. The woods were darker than ever. To cheer himself up, Ichabod began to whistle. Suddenly, someone whistled back. Ichabod looked around. In the shadow stood a huge, dark shape. Ichabod's horse stopped dead. Just then the moon came out from behind the clouds. The huge, dark shape began to look like a horse. On top of the horse sat a man. On top of the man's shoulders sat nothing. But there was a head under his arms. Ichabod screamed, "Ah!" It was the Headless Horseman. Ichabod remembered Brom's story. If only he could cross the church bridge, then he would be safe. He kicked his horse. "Go, go, go," urged Ichabod in a whisper. But the horse would not budge. It was like he was frozen in his steps. He kicked his horse again. Finally, the old horse dashed forward. The Headless Horseman dashed forward too. Away they went in a race to the bridge. Ichabod, riding for his life, leaned forward. Faster and faster, the horse clattered over the bridge with Ichabod clinging to its back. Ichabod glanced back. The headless horseman had stopped. Suddenly his horse reared up, and with a chilling laugh, the headless horseman hurled his head across the bridge right at Ichabod Crane. The next morning, Ichabod's horse was found nibbling grass at the edge of town. But where was Ichabod Crane? The people of Sleepy Hollow set out to look for him. They found his hat near the church bridge. They found a smashed pumpkin next to the hat. But Ichabod himself, they never found. There's his hat and the pumpkin. People could think of only one reason for Ichabod's disappearance. The headless horseman had carried him away. A farmer said he had seen a man who looked like Ichabod in another valley far away. No one believed him. Everybody knew that Ichabod's ghost now haunted the old church bridge. When Brom Bones heard these stories, he would get a sneaky look on his face. If he knew what really happened, he wasn't telling. The end. You decide. Okay, boys and girls, have a happy Halloween, and I hope you enjoy the story of the Headless Horseman. Be sure you take the AR test. You have your Chromebooks. You could do it right after we read the story in class, or you can do it at home. But be sure to do it. Okay? Thank you.